Picture this. I'm standing at my kitchen window, watching the late afternoon sun dip behind the cookie-cutter houses of our suburban street, casting long shadows over lawns that all look the same. There's a stillness here, just outside Chicago, that sometimes feels like it's pressing down on me. My name's Vanessa, I'm 41, and I've spent the last 15 years building a life with my husband, Mark, in this quiet corner of the world. It's not a bad life, far from it, but there are days when I catch myself staring out this window, wondering if there's something more waiting just beyond the horizon. Mark's 43, a software engineer who spends his days hunched over code, unraveling problems I can't even begin to understand. He's got this quiet way about him, a steady presence that's been my anchor for over a decade and a half. But every now and then I catch a glint of something mischievous in his hazel eyes, a little spark that reminds me there's more to him than the calm exterior suggests. It's that side of him that keeps me guessing, even after all these years. Me, I'm a freelance graphic designer, working from home most days, sketching out logos and layouts while the world outside hums along without me. The flexibility is a blessing, don't get me wrong. But there are moments when I ache for a jolt of something unexpected, something to shake up the rhythm of our days. Our marriage is a warm, familiar thing. Loving, yes, but oh so predictable. We've got our routines down to a science. Date nights at the same little Italian place down the road, where I always order the fettuccine alfredo, and he sticks to the spaghetti marinara. Weekends are for errands, ticking off grocery lists and hardware store runs like we're following a script. Sometimes we'll curl up for a movie night, sharing a bowl of popcorn on the couch, and I'll catch myself smiling at how comfortable it all feels. But comfort can start to feel like a cage if you're not careful, can it? I try not to dwell on that thought too much. Mark's got this tight circle of friends from his college days, a group of guys he's known forever. I've only met a handful of them over the years, and even then, it's been brief. Quick hellos at a barbecue or a passing wave at some event. Their names stick in my mind though, maybe because Mark mentions them so rarely. There's Ethan, the tallest of the bunch, with a presence that fills up a room without him even trying. Then there's Caleb, Ryan, Nathan, Derek, Shane, and Travis. I couldn't tell you much about them, honestly. Mark doesn't talk about their get-togethers, and when he does, it's in vague terms. A guy's night here, a catch-up there. I've always found it a bit odd, how little I know about these men who mean so much to him. So, there I was Friday evening rolling in with that restless itch under my skin, the kind that makes you want to break free from the same old. Mark and I were in our bedroom, tossing a few clothes into a worn-out duffel bag. Nothing fancy, just some jeans, tees, and the basics for a weekend away. He'd suggested this getaway out of the blue a few days ago, a chance to unplug at a state park a couple of hours from our suburban bubble outside Chicago. I was all for it, craving a breath of something different, even if I didn't quite know what to expect. We hit the road in our old SUV, the engine grumbling like it's got a grudge against long drives. The city sprawl faded behind us, those gray concrete jungles giving way to winding country roads that twisted through endless stretches of green. I kept glancing over at Mark, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he was quieter than usual, just humming along to some classic rock on the radio, his hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. I figured he was just worn out from the work week, so I let the silence sit between us, heavy but not quite uncomfortable. Outside, the scenery was like a painting come to life. Tall pines towering over the road, their shadows stretching long as the late afternoon sun spilled golden streaks through the branches. As we got closer to the park, a faint whiff of damp earth crept through the cracked window, grounding me in a way I hadn't felt in ages. By the time we pulled into the secluded forest clearing near a serene lake, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in fiery oranges and pinks. I stepped out of the car, my boots crunching on pine needles, and just stopped to take it all in. The lake mirrored the fading light, a perfect reflection of the heavens above. while the rustling leaves whispered secrets I couldn't quite catch. The stillness was almost too much, like the world was holding its breath. It was beautiful, no doubt, but there was an edge to it, something I couldn't put my finger on. Then I saw them, 7 men already there, standing near a cluster of blankets and coolers in a loose semicircle. Ethan, Caleb, Ryan, Nathan, Derek, Shane, and Travis. Mark's old college buddies, though I'd barely exchanged more than a handful of words with any of them over the years. They were all dressed in dark gear, black or navy jackets, jeans, even sunglasses despite the dimming light. Their postures were stiff, like they were waiting for something, and their faces gave nothing away. No smiles, no waves, just a few curt nods as we approached. My stomach twisted into a knot, a flicker of unease I tried to brush off. Who wears shades at sunset? Why the cold shoulder? I opened my mouth to ask Mark what was up, but before I could, he squeezed my hand, his grip firm, and leaned in close. Just. As the evening deepened, the air in the clearing seemed to grow heavier, almost suffocating, despite the gentle breeze rustling through the pines. I sat on one of the blankets near Mark, my fingers wrapped around a second glass of wine, the smooth red liquid catching the last glimmers of twilight. The warmth of it spread through me, dulling the sharp edges of my earlier unease, though I couldn't shake the strange tension that hung over us all. The men, Ethan, Caleb, Ryan, Nathan, Derek, Shane, and Travis, were scattered around, some leaning against trees, others crouched near the cooler, their voices low and sporadic. Every so often I'd catch them exchanging glances, quick and subtle, like they were communicating something I wasn't meant to understand. It made my skin prickle, but I told myself it was just the wine playing tricks on my mind. I took another sip, letting the fruity tang linger on my tongue, when I noticed Ethan stand up from where he'd been sitting across the clearing. He was impossible to miss, towering over the others with those broad shoulders, his presence almost a force of its own. He started walking toward us, his movements slow and deliberate, each step calculated. The sound of his heavy boots crunching on the pine needles echoed in the stillness, a steady rhythm that matched the sudden pounding in my chest. I watched him approach, unable to look away, as he came to a stop right in front of where Mark and I sat. He loomed over me, his shadow stretching long across the blanket, and then he reached down for a bottle of wine resting just beside me. His arm brushed against my shoulder as he did, a fleeting touch that lingered just a heartbeat too long. A jolt shot through me, electric and unexpected, and I froze, my breath catching in my throat. My eyes darted to Mark, searching for some kind of reaction, some sign of what I should do. At first, his face was a mask, unreadable in the dim light, but then I saw it. A small, almost imperceptible nod. His hazel eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that pinned me in place, a look I'd never seen from him before. My heart raced, hammering against my ribs, as a chilling realization settled over me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake. There was something here, something unspoken, something Mark had orchestrated without ever saying a word to me. My mind spun, a whirlwind of confusion and fear, but beneath it all, there was something else. A strange, forbidden thrill that I couldn't ignore, no matter how much I wanted to. I glanced around, noticing that the other men had turned their attention to us now. Their sunglasses were off, revealing eyes that watched with a mix of curiosity and expectation, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of a lantern someone had set up. The weight of their stares pressed down on me, making my skin flush hot despite the cool night air. I felt exposed, vulnerable, but I couldn't deny the pull, the magnetic draw of whatever was happening. With shaky legs, I stood up, my glass still clutched in one hand, and took a few hesitant steps after Ethan, who had already started walking toward the tree line, away from the blankets and closer to the open sky. The stars were just beginning to pierce through the darkness above, cold and distant, as if they were watching too. My boots stumbled over the uneven ground, pine needles sticking to the soles as I followed him. Every step felt heavier, like I was walking towards something I couldn't turn back from. When I reached him, just a few yards from the others, Ethan turned to face me, his expression unreadable but his intent clear. He stepped closer, his hands finding my waist with a firm grip that made my breath hitch again. Then he pulled me in, and before I could think, before I could stop myself, his lips were on mine. The kiss was hungry, urgent, a collision of heat in the chilly night. It deepened, and soon we were lost in a moment that went beyond just a kiss, a tangle of need and recklessness right there in the clearing, with the rough bark of a nearby tree pressing into my back as I leaned against it. As I pulled away from Ethan, my breath still ragged, the reality of what had just happened crashed over me like a wave. My hands were trembling as I adjusted my jacket, smoothing out the creases with unsteady fingers, trying to anchor myself in something mundane. The cool night air bit at my flushed skin, a stark contrast to the heat still lingering in my veins. I couldn't bring myself to look at him, or at anyone else for that matter, as I turned to walk back toward Mark. My boots crunched on the pine needles, each step feeling heavier than the last, like I was dragging the weight of my own confusion behind me. I kept my eyes on the ground, avoiding the gazes of the other men who had now turned back to their quiet conversations, their murmurs blending into the rustle of the leaves as if nothing had shattered the stillness just moments ago. But I felt their awareness, a silent acknowledgement hanging in the air, thicker now than before. The earlier calm of the evening was gone, replaced by a charged silence that pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. I reached the blanket where Mark sat, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. I lowered myself beside him, my movements stiff, expecting to see anger or hurt etched across his face. Something, anything, to match the storm raging inside me. But when I finally dared to glance at him, I froze. There was no trace of fury, no shadow of betrayal. Instead, a faint smile curved his lips, soft and almost approving. His hazel eyes were bright, catching the faint glow of the lantern nearby, and there was a strange satisfaction in the way he looked at me, like he'd been waiting for this moment all along. It sent a shiver down my spine, not of fear, but of something I couldn't name. He didn't say a word at first, just reached over and took my hand, his grip gentle but firm, squeezing it as if to reassure me. The warmth of his touch was a lifeline, but it only deepened the whirl of questions in my mind. How could he be okay with this? How could he sit there, looking at me like I'd done something right, when I felt like I'd just crossed a line we could never uncross? I searched his face, desperate for a crack in that calm exterior, for any sign of pain or doubt, but there was nothing. Just that quiet, knowing look, as if he held all the answers and I was still fumbling in the dark. My thoughts spun, a tangled mess of guilt and bewilderment, but beneath it all, there was a flicker of curiosity I couldn't extinguish. What was he thinking? What did he see in me right now that made him smile like that? I opened my mouth to ask, to demand some kind of explanation, but the words caught in my throat, trapped by the weight of the moment. Around us, the other men started to move, breaking the stillness as they began packing up the picnic supplies. Blankets were folded with methodical precision, empty wine bottles clinked as they were gathered into a cooler, and the low hum of their voices returned to a normal cadence. It was surreal, this sudden shift back to normalcy, as if the charged undercurrent of the night had never existed. I found myself helping, almost on autopilot, rolling up a spare blanket while Mark stacked a few plates nearby. My eyes darted to Ethan across the clearing, just for a moment, and he gave me a polite nod, nothing more, nothing less, like we were mere acquaintances exchanging pleasantries at a casual gathering. It was so detached, so ordinary, that it made my stomach twist all over again. How could he act like nothing had happened when the memory of his touch still burned on my skin? One by one, the group began to disperse, heading toward their cars parked at the edge of the clearing. Headlights flickered on, cutting through the darkness, and the sound of engines rumbling to life filled the air. I watched them go, their taillights disappearing into the night, until it was just Mark and me left behind. We lingered by the lake, standing side by side as the last car vanished from sight. The world felt quieter now, almost empty, save for the soft lapping of the lake against the shore and the distant hoot of an owl hidden somewhere in the pines. I stood there with Mark, the cool night air wrapping around us, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy like before, though. It felt like a pause, a breath before something inevitable. I could still feel the ghost of Ethan's touch, the intensity of that stolen moment by the trees, and it clashed with the steady, grounding presence of Mark beside me. My mind was a storm of emotions, guilt, confusion, and that persistent, nagging curiosity about what all of this meant for us. I glanced at the lake, its surface shimmering under the pale moonlight, a mirror to the chaos inside me, and I wondered how we'd gotten here, to this edge of something I couldn't quite name. Mark turned to me then, his movement slow, almost deliberate, and I felt my heart skip as I met his gaze. His hazel eyes were softer now, not with that earlier intensity, but with something deeper, something raw. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low and steady, cutting through the quiet like a whisper meant just for me. "Vanessa, I've been waiting to see this side of you for a long time." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning I wasn't sure I fully grasped, and before I could respond, he stepped closer, pulling me into his arms. The warmth of his embrace was immediate, familiar in a way that grounded me instantly, yet it contrasted so sharply with the lingering shock of the evening. His jacket smelled faintly of pine and the smoky remnants of the night, and I let myself sink into him, my cheek pressed against his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heartbeat. It was a comfort I didn't expect to feel, not after everything, and yet it was exactly what I needed in that moment. A reminder of the foundation we'd built over all these years. I felt his breath against my hair as he held me tighter, and then he leaned down, his lips brushing my ear as he murmured, "Are you ready to try it in the mountains next time?" His voice was soft, almost a caress, but the question hit me like a jolt, sparking a mix of surprise and intrigue. I froze for a second, processing what he meant. The mountains? Next time? My mind raced back to the charged encounter with Ethan, the way it had unfolded under Mark's watchful gaze, and I realized he wasn't just okay with what had happened. He'd found something in it, something he wanted to explore further. It wasn't just about tonight. It was about opening a door to something new, something beyond the boundaries we'd always known. My pulse quickened at the thought, not out of fear, but out of a strange, exhilarating wonder about where this could lead. I pulled back just enough to look at him, my hands resting on his shoulders as I searched his face. In the moonlight, I saw it, a flicker of vulnerability in his expression, mixed with an unmistakable excitement that mirrored the rush I'd felt earlier. His eyes held mine, waiting, and I couldn't help but think back to that moment with Ethan, how it had ignited something inside me I hadn't felt in years. I'd come alive in a way that was both terrifying and electric, like I'd tapped into a part of myself I didn't even know existed. Standing there, with Mark's gaze so steady on me, I admitted to myself that I wanted to feel that again, to chase that spark and see where it could take us. A small, hesitant grin tugged at my lips, and I gave a slow nod, the gesture feeling heavier than it should have. It was a quiet agreement, but it carried the weight of a decision that could change everything. His face softened, a relieved smile breaking through, and for a moment, we just stood there, the lake glittering behind us like a silent witness to this shift between us. The moonlight danced on the water, casting silver streaks that seemed to stretch on forever, and I felt a rush of curiosity about what next time could mean. The mountains, rugged, untamed, a world away from here. As I sit in the passenger seat of our old SUV, the hum of the engine fills the space around me, a steady drone that matches the rhythm of my thoughts. We're driving home now, the dark, winding roads stretching out before us like a ribbon of uncertainty. The weekend is behind us, but its weight lingers, heavy in the air between Mark and me. It's not an uncomfortable silence, though, not like it could have been. Instead, it feels like a shared space, a quiet that's grown out of a new understanding, a bridge built from the unexpected moments we've just lived through. Outside, the world is swallowed by night. The tall pines lining the road reduced to shadowy silhouettes under a sky pricked with faint stars. Every now and then, the headlights catch a glint of something. A road sign, a pair of eyes from some unseen creature in the brush, and it pulls me back to the present, to this moment of reflection as we make our way back to the familiar. I let my mind wander over the events by the lake, the clearing that became a stage for something I never saw coming. I don't regret what happened there with Ethan, that charged encounter under the stars, where boundaries blurred in a way that felt both reckless and inevitable. It was like a spark struck in the dark, igniting a part of me I didn't even know was dormant. A hunger for something beyond the everyday, a taste of the wild I hadn't realized I craved. Feeling that rush, that heat of the moment, it was like waking up after a long, dreamless sleep. And Mark, his reaction, that quiet approval in his eyes, the way he watched without a trace of anger, it showed me a side of him I'd never fully grasped. There's a depth to him, a hidden current beneath the steady surface I've leaned on for so long. He wasn't just okay with it. He seemed to welcome it, as if he'd been waiting for me to step into this uncharted space alongside him. It's unsettling, sure, but it's also opened my eyes to how much more there is to discover about the man I've shared my life with for 15 years. I'm still processing it all, turning the pieces over in my mind like a puzzle I'm not sure I'll ever solve. Those boundaries we crossed, they're not just lines in the sand anymore. They're a threshold to something new, something that could reshape everything I thought I knew about us. Where will this lead? I don't have an answer, and maybe that's okay. For once, I'm not afraid of the unknown. Instead, there's a flicker of anticipation burning low in my chest, a curiosity about what lies ahead. I glance out the window, imagining the mountains Mark mentioned, those rugged peaks rising sharp and untamed against a vast sky. I picture secluded cabins tucked away in hidden valleys, the kind of places where the world feels far away, where the air is crisp with secrets waiting to be uncovered. I can almost feel the thrill of a next time, the promise of stepping even further into this newfound territory, of exploring whatever wildness awaits us there. It's not just about the physical place, it's about the journey, about diving deeper into this side of ourselves we've only just begun to touch. My hand rests on the armrest, fingers tapping lightly as I steal a sideways glance at Mark. His profile is illuminated by the faint glow of the dashboard lights, his jaw set in that familiar, determined way, hands steady on the wheel as he navigates the twists of the road. There's a quiet strength in him, a resolve that's always been there, but now I see it through a different lens. I think about how this weekend has shifted something fundamental between us, not breaking it, but bending it into a shape I'm still learning to recognize. It's not just about what happened in the clearing. It's about the unspoken agreement we made standing by the lake, the nod I gave him under the moonlight, the decision to keep moving forward together, wherever that might take us. I feel a warmth spreading through me at the thought, a sense of partnership that's been renewed, forged in the fire of something daring and raw. Without overthinking it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.